Government sets housing supply target of 480,000 units for the next decade. CLP Power to increase tariff by 3.1% next year. And the hostage taker in the Sydney siege identified as an Iranian refugee with no known ties to terror groups.
Good evening. The government has set 480,000 units as its target housing supply for the next decade. In its long-term housing strategy document, it also says it will explore ways to help people buy property. Stephanie Cho reports.
According to the latest projections, the government has set a supply target of 480,000 units between 2015 to 16 and 2024 to 25. That's 10,000 more from the target for the 10 years from 2013 announced earlier. The current 60-40 ratio of public and private flats will be retained. So out of the 480,000 units, the public housing supply target will be 290,000, 200,000 rental units and 90,000 subsidized sale flats. 190,000 will be private homes. The government plans to cover the extra 10,000 units by building new subsidized flats. It's putting forward 3 strategies to try to achieve the overall long-term target.
Number 1, to build more public rental housing units and to ensure the rational use of existing stock. Number 2, to provide more subsidized sale flats, expand the forms of subsidized home ownership and facilitate the market circulation of existing stock. And number 3, to stabilize the residential property market through steady land supply and appropriate demand management measures, and to promote good sales and tenancy practices.
Chung said the government will have to consider more ways to expand subsidized home ownership. Latest government figures show right now there are 86,400 subdivided units, which is 30% more than 2 years ago. Authorities stress as long as there is enough land supply, issues arising from rents, property prices and subdivided flats can all be solved. The government says it has adopted a supply-led strategy and a policy shift to tackle an imbalance between supply and demand. And officials are not in favor of reintroducing rent control regulations, saying such a move may lead to other problems. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
Grassroots groups say they are disappointed about the new housing strategy as they believe it ignores the needs of low-income households. Joy De Silva reports.
About a dozen grassroots groups have already voiced their objections to the government's newly released housing strategy. Chan Hoi-chi of the Alliance for Concerning Grassroots Housing Rights said the plan to build 200,000 public rental units over the next 10 years was beyond insufficient. Already there are more than 260,000 cases on the public housing waiting list, she said, and there will be new ones in the coming decade. The groups were also upset that the government shot down the idea of reintroducing rent control. Saying that the government should use Urban Renewal Authority land for public housing, they demanded that new public housing flats be provided in every district. Wong Kun, chairman of the Federation of Public Housing Estates, criticized the government for not taking on board suggestions made by the Long-Term Housing Strategy Steering Committee and not responding to people's needs. Wong, who was on the steering committee, said, for example, no solution was offered to the problem of providing living space for those in subdivided flats, nor was there any mention of increasing subsidized housing units in the long run. Democratic Party lawmaker Wu Chi-wai, who sits on LegCo's panel on housing, expressed concern that the government may have more heart than ability in executing long-term housing strategies. He projected problems with the government trying to get approval for each step along the way of its plans, given its low popularity. But panel chairwoman Alice Mack of the Federation of Trade Unions welcomed the strategy. She hopes the overall target of an extra 10,000 flats could help sandwich-class residents buy their own homes. These are people who are over the limit for public housing, yet can't afford the hefty down payments for homes in the private market. João da Silva, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott led his country in mourning today for the victims of the Sydney cafe siege, which left 3 people dead, including the lone gunman who took more than a dozen people hostage. Abbott pledged he would work with national and local authorities to find out whether more could have been done to prevent it.
It was just after 2 a.m. local time when tactical police made their move to end the 16-hour siege at a Sydney cafe. Armed with stun grenades and live ammunition, police stormed the place. Flashes of light and gunshot erupted from inside the Lindt cafe, moments after several hostages escaped. But when it was all over, the lone gunman at the centre of the crisis, Iranian refugee man Haron Monis, was dead, along with 2 hostages. Several others were wounded, including 1 police officer. Today, shocked Sydneyers paid their respects to the fallen, laying flowers near the cafe in the city's central business district.
It's absolutely devastating that could happen, and that just anyone going about their business, going to get a coffee in the morning, and to have something so tragic and horrible happen to them and the families and extended families is just horrific.
Local and national politicians also visited the site, including Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott. He paid tribute to the 2 hostages who lost their lives, lawyer Katrina Dawson and cafe manager Tory Johnson.
Our hearts go out to the families of Katrina Dawson and Tory Johnson. These were decent, good people who were going about their ordinary lives.
What we do know is that the perpetrator was well known to state and Commonwealth authorities. He had a long history of violent crime, infatuation with extremism and mental instability.
But while he was known to authorities, Monis was not on Australia's terror watch list. He had been convicted for writing offensive letters to families of Australian soldiers killed in Afghanistan and was charged with being an accessory to the murder of his ex-wife. And earlier this year, he was charged with the sexual assault of a woman in 2002.
Taliban gunmen in Pakistan stormed a school in the northwestern city of Peshawar today, killing at least 84 students. Pakistan television showed security forces surrounding the area after at least 6 armed men entered the military-run school this morning. The gunmen reportedly shot at random while exams were taking place in the school. The military says most of the students and staff have been evacuated in an ongoing rescue operation. The Taliban has claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it's in revenge for the army's offensive launched in North Waziristan back in June.
To Belgium, where 3 people have been arrested in connection with an apartment siege in the city of Ghent yesterday. Authorities have ruled out terrorism as the motive. Police ended the siege by storming the flat following reports that gunmen had taken a hostage there. No one was injured in the incident. Officers arrived at the scene after several armed men entered the apartment block in a working-class neighborhood. Authorities believe the case might be drug-related.
Police in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania are searching for a man suspected of going to 3 houses in the Philadelphia area and shooting 6 people dead, including his ex-wife and her relatives. 1 person was also wounded. Local police have warned that the suspect, Bradley William Stone, may be armed and dangerous. Authorities have already recovered the cell phone and car of Stone, who had recently been in court fighting with his ex-wife over custody of their 2 children. They suspect the fatal killings may have been triggered by the custody dispute.
And still ahead in the news tonight. Possible charges against a former Korean Air executive in the nut rage case. Chinese university researchers find new allergens in dust mites. And the first robot traveling as a paid passenger on board a jetliner.
When do the laws of physics dictate that sound travels farthest? Your animal friends know. And did you think we're the only creatures that sunbathe? Or use sunscreen? Tonight, Wingxing Photo Supplies 40th Anniversary presents 24 Hours on Earth at 9:30 on Earth Spectacular.
喂，阿仔啊，我頭好痛啊，仲鼻塞添啊！你等下，喂，老婆，喉嚨好痛啊，仲周身骨痛。我發燒啊，你摸下我頭幾興。我沾到鼻水啊！我咳死啦！
幸福為你行多步，特強幸福傷風咳素，12大傷風感冒同咳症狀，一次過 KO。幸福為你行多步。
Do you dream in chocolate? Taste the Lindor truffle, created with passion by Lind's master chocolatiers. When Lindor's irresistible center starts to melt, so will you. Smooth, flowing, luscious chocolate like no other. The Lindor truffle from Lind.
Introducing Turbo Down from Columbia Sportswear. With its Omni-Heat reflective lining, it's ultralight and super warm. Turbo Down, unleash the power of warmth. Columbia.
姑娘，我想用醫療券睇醫生啊。
婆婆，咁你攞張身份證俾我，同簽咗呢份同意書啦。
阿爸，今日見到張婆婆去睇醫生嗰陣用醫療券喎。
我都想用啊。
我幫你上網揾服務提供者名單先。
People aged 70 or above are eligible to receive healthcare vouchers. The annual amount has been increased to $2,000 and the accumulation limit to $4,000.
The time now is 7:42. The time check was brought to you by Seiko.
And we're back tonight with more local news. CLP Power announced today that their electricity tariffs will go up next year, although the rise is far lower than expected. Meanwhile, Hong Kong Electric's charges will remain the same. Evelina Leung reports.
After raising electricity tariffs this year, CLP said today it would increase charges again in 2015. This time the tariff increase will be 3.1%, which means each unit of electricity will cost $1.142.
Next year we will use more natural gas that affects the fuel expense. The fuel cross charge will rise to 27 cents.
Yet with energy rebates, the power company said 36% of households that use their service will pay less. The adjustment will take effect on January 1st. Meanwhile, Hong Kong Electric said their electricity fees will remain unchanged. The company's managing director attributed their decision to falling fuel prices. Despite freezing its tariffs, Hong Kong Electric prices continue to be more expensive compared with CLP. How does the public feel about CLP's tariff increase? This person said the increase is reasonable, and as long as it is not above the inflation rate, then it's fine. Yet this man said he had hoped the increase would be less. The Energy Advisory Committee's chairman Raymond So, meanwhile, had some good news for consumers. He said with the price of fuel dropping, electricity charges could drop further in the future. With the scheme of control that allows CLP Power and Hong Kong Electric to control the power market in the city expiring in 2018, So believes both companies will try to keep their tariff adjustments to a minimum to gain support of the public in the government consultation on how the SAR should meet its future electricity and power needs. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying